Good evening. I'm on time today. I'm sure that makes some of you regular live viewers happy. I always see those complaints. Oh, he's late again. It's busy and I have to eat. I have to work out. I have to get all this 49ers news sorted away. I have to write my articles. But today, I'm all done with everything I need to do. And I thought that it would be a good time because we've been microanalyzing the 49ers big time over free agency and over the draft. Thought it'd be a good time to zoom out, take a look at the big picture, because the goal is to build a roster that can potentially win you a championship. And I always advocate the big picture approach whenever we get a little too buried in the weeds. And I think during free agency, when people are freaking out about every single microtransaction, and during the draft, when people are freaking out about a draft pick that goes late in the third round and they think, oh, well, he should have gone in the fourth, you're kind of losing the forest because you're staring at a tree. So it's always important to find a drone, do whatever you can, go vertical, look at the forest from above, look at the big picture. And that's what I'm going to try to do today, because I think it's finally appropriate to actually look at potential team strength, potential title chances, and start talking about that now. Because the people who do it after the draft and say, oh, the 49ers, they don't have a chance to contend this year. Well, I mean, the people do it after free agency, not after the draft. Let me correct my words. The people who do it after free agency before the draft, I mean, that's like leaving a restaurant review before the main course even comes. They're judging a restaurant based on the appetizer only. But now we've gotten the appetizer, which is free agency. We've gotten the draft, which is the main course. And we're ready to sit down and look at the 49ers roster holistically. And that is all 90 players moving forward into OTAs, into training camp. How will the 49ers take the materials that are here? How will they mold them into a team that can contend? So we can take our first look at how strong they might be and what the parameters might be, what the blueprint might be for this team to potentially hoist its sixth Lombardi trophy by the time this 22 campaign is done. So let's take a look at the parameters that the 49ers established with their 2021 team. DVOA, measured by Football Outsiders. Aaron Schatz runs the site. Great guy, cool follow on Twitter. Check out footballoutsiders.com. I really love all the work that they're doing. They're going to give us a measurement of efficiency relative to other teams. So this is going to be much more sophisticated than just your simple yardage stats. This is actually going to have a correlation to whether or not a team is going to win games in the future. Just simple raw yardage doesn't have much of a correlation in that regard. DVOA, defense adjusted value average, is the standard, in my opinion, for measuring team strength in a predictive manner. It's a lot like EPA per play, except it's going to be opponent adjusted. And I think Aaron Schatz and Football Outsiders have done a great job to essentially quantify where teams are strong and where teams are weak based on DVOA. Last season, the 49ers ranked number 5 on offense among all NFL teams, number 7 on defense, and number 26 on special teams. So good on offense and defense, a disaster on special teams. That's what made the playoffs exceptional, because special teams actually, against the Packers, at least in the divisional round, came through to save the 49ers skin. But this was not a trend throughout the course of the regular season. Over our larger sample size, the 49ers were good on offense and defense and bad on special teams. The key to winning a title in the National Football League is balance. You have to be strong enough on both sides of the ball, and offense and defense are going to make up the most of this. Special teams is a smaller piece of the pie, but you have to find a way to get efficiency, get enough, there's X amount of efficiency that you have to reach in order to have a solid title winning chance. A team with an awesome offense, the greatest show on turf, Rams, for example, the 49ers in 1994. I mean, the 49ers, every time they won the Super Bowl, were doing something right offensively, but most recently, let's see, great offense. We could think about the 2007 New England Patriots, right? They didn't win the Super Bowl, but they went 18-0 or so. What do they go? 18-1. Yeah, you could see those fans who don't like the Patriots from that season will wear a T-shirt that says 18-1, and yeah, I guess it still hurts out there in Boston, but that was an awesome offense. And that team established a level of efficiency through its offense. The easiest path to get to whatever amount of efficiency that you need is to have both the offense and the defense, and then also the special teams unit contributing, right? So a team like the greatest show on turf Rams from the late 1990s and the early 2000s, those guys established title winning efficiency, right, through the offense. A team like the 1994 49ers was amazing on both sides of the football. Probably the best 49ers team ever was the 1989 49ers. They were also really good on both sides of the football, and they would end in the top three in both offense and defense in the DVOA measurements, and then special teams just didn't screw it up for them. The problem with the 49ers in 2020 is that they were good enough on offense and defense to win a title, but they weren't good on special teams at all. They're number 26. Now, just think if special teams hadn't really cost the 49ers over the course of the regular season as many times as they did, you could probably tack on a couple more wins to the total, and the 49ers would have been right in the thick of the race for the division. They might have had a chance to earn a bye, and if they had earned a bye, they wouldn't have run out of gas in the NFC Championship game quite as easily. So all this stuff adds up, right? There's a reason why you want to rank higher in the efficiency metrics, because generally that's going to correlate with a better shot at winning in the regular season, earning a bye, and the clear path to a Super Bowl title does lie through a bye. You want that bye week so you can go through and be rested for the divisional playoff and then rested for the conference championship and then have your shot at winning the Super Bowl. Obviously, the 49ers took the very hard path this past year. I know that the Rams also didn't have a bye. They had to beat the Arizona Cardinals in that wild card round, but they got a home game, right? And then they got another home game against the 49ers in the conference championship game. The 49ers had to win elimination game after elimination game after elimination game on the road just to make it to the NFC Championship game, where they fell just short of the Rams. They definitely didn't set themselves up with the easy path, and this is why, because they struggled during the regular season. In fact, the defense wasn't the number one defense throughout most of the regular season either. It was a below average defense for about the first half of the year. Then they kicked it into gear when that pass rush showed up, when some health started to return for the 49ers. They actually finished with a number 3 weighted DVOA on defense, which meant that they were number 3 ranked if you assigned greater importance to late season games. So my question for the 49ers moving forward is, can the defense re-enter the top 3 in 2022? Remember, they were number 7 last year, but number 3 weighted, which means they finished as a top 3 defense. I think that the defense this season on paper is deeper than the defense of the past 2 seasons. And we can say that now because free agency and the draft are both over. Today, the 49ers re-signed Jason Verrett. He might not be ready for the start of the season, but who cares? I think that the Jason Verrett signing is simply symbolic of where the 49ers are as a team when it comes to defensive depth. Think of it this way. In 2021, the 49ers entered the season relying on Jason Verrett to be healthy, to have an acceptable cornerback position and secondary. In 2022, they have Jason Verrett on the team, but they're no longer relying on him to have an acceptable secondary. He's more like icing on the cake. That's an illustration of how much the tide has risen for the 49ers defensively, especially in the secondary. And I also think that the defensive line can be better than it was in 2021 because of the additions they've made. Yes, they've lost DJ Jones, but look at all the margin pieces that the 49ers have picked up. Kerry Hyder, Hassan Ridgeway, Maurice Hurst should be back, and he should be playing a little bit more next year. They only saw limited snaps last season because of injuries. Those are all margin pieces that the 49ers can plug and play into the inside to make up for somebody like DJ Jones. And then, of course, they ended the season really well because Chris Kasarik developed the hell out of the edge rushers. Guys like Charles Omenihu, guys like Sansom Ebukam. All those guys are going to be on the team, and then we'll see what Drake Jackson, the number 61 overall pick, who some people thought might go in the first round. We'll see what he can bring to the table. Plus, the linebackers are really good for the 49ers, and they'll be in contract years, Azeez Al-Shire and Dre Greenlaw. So I firmly believe that the 49ers defense can be back up in number 3 DVOA next season. And when we look at the big picture, I'm going to keep on reminding you guys of this big picture. They were number 5 offense, number 7 defense, number 26 special teams last year. If that defense can improve from number 7 to number 3, in 2019, by the way, they were number 2 when they went to the Super Bowl. Well, if that could be a top 3 defense, as you'll see over the course of this illustration, that can be a huge domino in the 49ers bid to return to the top of the NFC and eventually the top of the NFL. It's been a long time since they've been the very mountaintop of the NFL. The biggest weakness, as you see right here, and I've already discussed, is the special teams. Number 26 last year, unacceptable if the 49ers intend to seriously compete for a title. Well, Shanahan and Lynch have truly attacked that terrible special teams ranking this offseason. In fact, their primary focus of free agency beyond signing Charvarius Ward, which, by the way, helped the defense, which might help the defense get back in that top three, was a focus on special teams. You look at the signings, George Odom, he led the league in special teams tackles just a couple years ago. I mean, this is a special teams all-pro, came over from Indianapolis in free agency. Ray McLeod, another big special teams pickup. This is a guy who actually led the league in punt return yards last season. So the 49ers were terrible, number 32 in the return game. They should get a little bit better in the return game since they picked up a dedicated veteran piece. And Oren Burks was a big-time special teams player, one of the only good special teams players for the Green Bay Packers, who are one of the teams that were worse in that regard last year. On top of that, the 49ers have made a coordinator switch at the top of their special teams unit, so that's important. Richard Hightower is obviously out. There were complaints about the 49ers not being ready for certain fakes and, just schematically being a step behind opposing teams in that phase of the game. And now with Brian Schneider as their special teams coordinator, they should be better prepared for all of that because he has a better track record than Richard Hightower does. And the 49ers needed some fresh blood there. So they let Hightower's contract expire. They generally revamped their entire coverage units on special teams. And the parts of the unit that were good, the long snapping was good, the kicking was good with Robbie Gould, and the punting was decent with Mitch Wishnowsky. All those guys will be back. So they'll maintain consistency in their kicking battery. And I think that the 49ers can definitely expect to be better than number 26 on special teams. How much better? We'll talk about that in a bit. Now the offense. What can the 49ers offense do under Trey Lance? Can Trey Lance and the 49ers offense stay afloat in 2022? Now, remember, last season, number 5 on offense. The offense was actually the driver of this team for a while. Jimmy Garoppolo, Deebo Samuel, all those guys, they found a way to deliver the efficiency when it was needed, despite the fact that it started to crumble a little bit around them, right? When Mike McGlinchey got hurt in week 9 against Arizona, it didn't look good for the 49ers when they had to play Tom Compton. But especially with Deebo, who's going to be so important to the future of this team with Trey Lance taking over, you need that versatile Swiss Army knife of a weapon. Especially with Deebo, you can overcome some flaws because you have such a multiple way to attack teams offensively. He can line up in the backfield. He can line up in the slot. He can line up out wide. Defenses are always a little bit off balance depending on where he is in the formation, and the 49ers were able to use that unpredictability to their advantage. They were able to play to Tom Compton's strengths at right tackle. He was a run blocker, right? He wasn't a pass blocker, and they generally were able to shield some of those weaknesses between him and Brunskill on the right side. Deebo Samuel had a monster year. Jimmy Garoppolo made the plays that he needed to down the stretch. You remember the games against Cincinnati. You remember week 18 against the Rams up until the shoulder injury. And then obviously also had the thumb injury or whatever. I mean, he was so beaten up at the end of the year that the offense started to lose a little bit of steam in the playoffs. But in general, the numbers don't lie. The 49ers were able to, in the big picture, generate enough efficiency to have the offense be the locomotive that pulled the train while the defense and the special teams were sagging. And then the defense and the special teams eventually caught up, and that's why the team went on a run late in the season and then into the playoffs all the way to the conference title game. So they have to maintain that this next season under Trey Lance. So the big question under Trey Lance is, can he keep that offense afloat? You saw the number 5 ranking last season. My number, it's a magic number that I just came up with in my head, but it's 12. Can Trey Lance keep that 49ers offense from falling under the number 12 DVOA ranking? Because number 5 last year was needed for the 49ers to make it as far as they did. But the 49ers should have a better defense and should definitely have better special teams in 2022. So I don't think you need that offense to be in the top 5, at least for the early part of the year in 2022. I think there's leeway for Trey Lance to have growing pains, and the 49ers must build some Trey Lance growing pains into their 2022 calculus. It's simply not reasonable for Trey Lance to show up in his first year starting after, being such a raw prospect coming out of North Dakota State, and to play at an all-pro caliber level, especially early in the season. A lot of people have delusions of grandeur as far as what Trey Lance is going to bring to the table. I think he's going to be a great quarterback for the 49ers. I've studied the hell out of his tape. I think he improved over his 10 quarters in meteoric fashion over the course of the 2021 season. I think he's got a great offseason of opportunity ahead of him, with phase 2 of OTA starting today, and then phase 2 of the offseason program starting today, and then OTA starting on May 23rd. Training camp's going to be exceptionally important for Trey Lance, but he's got a good head on his shoulders, and I do think that improvement is definitely in the cards for him. The thing is that this is the National Football League, and it's tough for any new quarterback. So the key for the 49ers offense is by scrounging together whatever efficiency they can, whether it be through the run game, whether it be through some deception, keeping defenses off balance with formations. Deebo Samuel, so big for this, right? This is why you want to keep him happy and want to make sure that he's in the fold. If the 49ers can somehow make sure that this offense stays in top 12 efficiency throughout the course of this 2022 season, I think they're going to be contenders, because a top 12 offense, a top 3 defense, and a top 10 special teams unit, if you look at the formula, that will be enough to make the 49ers contenders. And on top of that, you have to remember that NFL seasons are marathons. 2021 should have taught us that. The 49ers started out slow. They definitely hit a real slog in the middle of the year. Everybody was writing them off, but they finished that marathon strong, and that's what got them all the way to the conference title game. Well, take the lesson, heed the lesson from 2021 and apply it to 2022. Because since it is a long season, the 49ers actually will have the luxury, if their defense and special teams allows them to have it, of working Trey Lance into the mix. So Trey could start the year as a mediocre quarterback. He can't be terrible, but he can start mediocre. The offense can be so-so. But if that defense is a top 3 unit, if that special teams hold serve 2, and let's say top 10, top 12 unit, it will allow the offense to kind of waddle along, not be all too great. But because these seasons are marathons, I think this is the calculus that Shanahan has in mind. Down the stretch, you get Trey going. You get that offense cooking. That offense might be a top 8 offense down the stretch if the 49ers fulfill their vision. Again, the defense stays healthy as a top 3 defense, and that special teams improves under new players and a new coordinator. Well, then you have the formula to winning a title, and that is balance. You want to peak at the right time, and you want to have balance as a football team. Last season, the 49ers kind of attained it, and then they walked a tightrope all the way to the NFC Championship game. It was key to get the special teams to contribute late. Number 26 wasn't enough. So if they can let go of that gross inefficiency on special teams, maintain the offense, and climb back up to true dominance on defense, I think the 49ers can do some special things in 2022. So that's my calculus for the 49ers in 2022. The raw roster materials to make it happen are all here. And now it's time for the 49ers to craft and mold and grow as a team to turn in that efficiency that I talked about. Will they do it? I don't know right now. And I'm not afraid to say that I don't know. But I'm telling you what the path for the 49ers is, what the blueprint for this team is. If they want to be true contenders in this 2022 season, that's the type of balance they're going to have to attain. And they're going to have to navigate around many challenges. And the biggest challenge is the fact that they're going to be starting a first-time quarterback, in all likelihood, in Trey Lance. And they're going to have to realize that this is not going to be the smoothest ride. And this is why it's a team sport, because if it's not the smoothest ride for Trey Lance, if he's learning on the job, if this is a crash course for him in several ways, his teammates are going to need to pick him up. And you start by not screwing things up on special teams, but then you could take that a step further by being dominant on defense. And then offense specifically, of course, you need a player like Deebo Samuel. We finally have the 49ers roster in place, 90 players. There are going to be tweaks, obviously. There are going to be cut downs in 4 months, but we can now spend the next 4 months intelligently talking about what the 49ers need to do as far as which levers to pull, which tweaks to make this roster and this team as strong as possible come September. And then they can make further tweaks as the marathon of the NFL season continues. And they can hopefully, if you're Kyle Shanahan, peak at the right time, just like they did in 2021. But on paper, you'd like to be better than you were in 2021 so that the peaking leads to a Super Bowl and not just a devastating loss in the NFC Championship game. All right, I want to hear some of your thoughts. I'll answer some of your questions. Took me about 19 minutes to get through that, but that's my formula for the 49ers. If we're looking at this from a data-driven analytical approach, I know I've been zeroing in on football discussion, traits of prospects, and a bunch of speculation ahead of the draft. So just wanted to get some hard and fast data out there to illuminate the path that the 49ers must take moving forward. So I appreciate you all right now. Like the channel, subscribe to the channel, check out all the work on The Athletic. And now let me go through some of the comments. Questions. Let's check it out. There's a lot of arguing. I don't want to put up any of the arguing. I want to put up some of the questions. This is from Mike. Injuries are random. You have to build a 90-man roster expecting it to happen. Yes, there is mainly randomness to injuries. Of course, you try to stockpile players who are more durable, but it's football. Guys are going to get hurt, even on the most durable football teams. So you insulate the roster with depth, and I think the biggest thing the 49ers have going for them is that they've built this roster up with tremendous depth at the margins. In my opinion, the defense is deeper than it was in 2020 or 2021. It might rival that 2019 defense as far as depth goes. I'm not talking about pure star power. That defense also had DeForest Buckner on it. Obviously, DJ Jones was still on the team. But as far as depth at the margins, I haven't seen a 49ers season under Shanahan where there's such a crowd in the DB room, especially after they brought in Jason Verrett on Monday, where there's such a crowd at the linebacker position. All three starters are plus players between Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, and Azeez Al-Shaair, and where the defensive line room is just a complete traffic jam. It's a total standstill. There are 12 or 13 NFL-proven players, and I'm counting the draft picks, so I guess Drake Jackson. They didn't get Drake. They got a different Drake out of USC, but Kalia Davis and Jackson are not yet proven NFL players, but we're going to assume that these guys will be able to make an NFL roster. If you count them, the 49ers have 12, if not 13 defensive linemen who are NFL-worthy names, who are NFL-worthy bodies, and that's a whole hell of a lot. And, you know, I don't remember a previous season where it was this much of a logjam. In 2021, last year, it was full, but it wasn't jammed up to the point of, oh boy, we're going to have to trade a couple guys just to get under the limit. It was about 10 deep as far as really quality NFL talent. Now they're at 12, maybe 13 deep. And that to me is a big deal because that margin depth, that's going to give the 49ers, besides the fact that it might give them some kind of trade leverage at the end of training camp, it's going to insulate them against some of the injuries that we talk about. So I really like where their defense is right now. I'm just not as sure about the offense because I need to see how that offensive line is going to pan out. I know they've added bodies. That's step number one. We need to see what happens with Deebo Samuel. We need to make sure that that guy shows up happy, right, before we make any judgments about these 49ers. And then, Trey Lance, he's the biggest wild card of all. If Trey Lance shows up and balls out and improves over the course of 2022, well, then a lot of offensive issues are immediately solved. That's how important the quarterback situation and the quarterback position is. But until we actually see some of this happen, it's all speculation. All right, let's see some more questions. Maybe some will be here. Do you think Trey Sermon makes the 53? Yes, I think Trey Sermon makes the 53-man roster. It's not only about one running back. It's going to be Elijah Mitchell, Jeff Wilson, Tyrion Davis-Price, Trey Sermon, JaMychal Hasty might be on the outside looking in. But again, injuries happen. So you can never have too many quality running backs, and the 49ers try to stockpile that room. Any word on Mac? No word on Mac. The word today is Jason Verrett is back in the fold for the 49ers. 30-year-old cornerback, turns 31 next month. But if he heals up, I mean, he's a sticky corner. He's a smart corner. Still has some good football left in him if he can get healthy and hold up healthy for the 49ers in this 2022 season. Does Jimmy take a pay cut if the 49ers can't move him? Well, I'm sure that Don Yee, his agent, is going to be perusing the market around the league to get an idea of how much money he could make elsewhere. And based on that, if it came to a release or pay cut situation, he would advise his client based on what the best course of action would be to be able to negotiate exactly what Jimmy Garoppolo's worth would be to the 49ers. So it's still too far away to know because we don't know what the quarterback needs are going to be yet when Jimmy Garoppolo does heal up. Some other quarterback around the league can get hurt. Hell, even Trey Lance can get hurt this offseason. And if that happens, nobody wishes that on anybody, the 49ers, but you keep your option power as long as you can. Because something happens to Trey Lance, so the 49ers will think they're lucky stars that they still have Jimmy Garoppolo on the roster right now, right? So it's a situation that's fluid. And until the 49ers actually are presented with a legitimate option, until they have to make a decision, it's just too early to consider a lot of these ifs, ands, and buts because stuff can change and stuff definitely will change. Should the 49ers re-sign Tart or stick with Hufanga and Odom? Well, I don't think Talanoa Hufanga is fast enough to be a reliable second safety in coverage. I like him in those 3 safety packages. I like him as a rover. I love his instincts. I want to see what Odom has on an every down basis, and I think the 49ers might use some of this offseason to determine that. But if they can get Tart back on a flyer rate, why not, right? They got Jason Verrett on a flyer rate. So if you get Tart on a flyer rate, that's somebody that you can look at as well. He's got experience in the system. He communicates well, and it's definitely something that the 49ers are not ruling out. Who do you think needs to make the leap forward to be contenders this year as far as teams or players? Please clarify your question. I do appreciate the tip, though, Robert. I'll come back to you if you could clarify if you want me to talk about other teams or 49ers players. If Trey gets hurt and Jimmy comes in and does great, do you go back to Trey when the team is in rhythm with Jimmy? Guys, we just got to think about this simply. You go with whoever gives your team the best chance to win. Last season, Jimmy Garoppolo gave the 49ers the best chance to win. He was a better quarterback than Trey Lance last season. I said it from – I went out and said the 49ers should draft Trey Lance, right? So, I don't think I had anything against Trey Lance. I'm a big Trey Lance fan from a football fan perspective, right? When I'm just sitting back and I'm appreciating the game, I really like the potential of Trey Lance and what he could bring to the table. But I can also appreciate the fact that he didn't have any experience at the NFL level, and he had limited experience at a lower college level. So I knew that he wasn't just going to walk into the National Football League and be better than Jimmy Garoppolo. And that ended up being the case. Trey Lance was really raw last year. Jimmy Garoppolo was the 49ers' better option to be efficient, and they went all the way to the NFC Championship game. That thinking ended up being correct, but it didn't take rocket science to be able to figure that out. Now, a year has passed. Trey has been a sponge. He's been absorbing some of that information. Jimmy Garoppolo's obviously had to undergo at least one surgery, and then for his thumb or, the fracture earlier on, he had to let that heal. So Jimmy Garoppolo's probably been stuck in neutral this offseason. Plus, Jimmy Garoppolo is much older, so his rate of improvement is not going to be nearly the same as Trey Lance's. So you reevaluate it now, and you would hope that Trey Lance, based on what you know about him and based on the physical tools, has at least closed most of the gap with Jimmy Garoppolo, right? In an ideal world, he's closed all the gap and shot ahead of him. But we don't know yet because the big offseason is still upon us. OTAs, training camp, all that still needs to happen. But if you end up with a logjam during the course of the season, if both of these guys are on the roster, you don't look at it in terms of, we need to put Trey in because the politics say this, or we need to put Jimmy in because the politics say this. No, if you're a good coach of a good football team, you look at who's better at the given moment, and that's the guy who plays. I think the 49ers bet right now is that Trey Lance is going to have an ascent this offseason. And that ascent will put him on par with Jimmy Garoppolo's efficiency because he's going to be able to do different things with his legs. Maybe he's going to be able to stretch that field a bit on off-schedule plays, uncork a few passes down there. And the 49ers hope that ultimately, even if their offense fades a little bit at the start of the season because of Trey Lance's inexperience, hopefully they can hit that ceiling, right, later on that's higher than it was before with Trey Lance. So I think, all these quarterback waffling questions, substituting back and forth, they overcomplicate things. It's who are you going to be better with in the 2022 season? And if the graph for Trey Lance is one that's moving upward, right, if it's an upward graph, that eventually surpasses the point where Jimmy Garoppolo is, well, then you say, oh boy, in a marathon of a 2022 season, Trey Lance can give us the best shot of winning a Super Bowl. Simple as that. Everyone keeps saying Jimmy G's money isn't hindering anything, but clearly that's not true. AJ Brown's signing bonus was 23 million. We couldn't do that right now. Oh, the 49ers can absolutely do that right now. In fact, they would want to give a bigger signing bonus to Deebo Samuel to fit under the salary cap. The bigger you get, like the more of the contract that's in a signing bonus, like a higher percentage that goes to the signing bonus versus base salary means lower salary cap hit for this season, because the salary cap hit of a signing bonus is spread out like an accordion over multiple seasons. So the 49ers can absolutely afford a contract like that if they structure it appropriately. Right. And that's interesting that you say AJ Brown's numbers are out, because I want to take a look at them here in a second. And maybe we could talk about that on the show. To be honest, I actually want to pop that open. If they're on over the cap, I'm going to be very interested in seeing this. But the way that these contracts work is that you actually want to pay out a lot of money because the SAP guaranteed, because the salary cap it's going to be lower. Right. And the 49ers can theoretically keep Deebo Samuel's cap hit the same as it is right now in his rookie deal for 2022. Even after an extension, they can keep it the same or maybe even lower it a little bit, depending on how they maneuver with these bonuses. So that's a fallacy. You can absolutely pay out guaranteed money and still keep the short-term cap hit low. You just defer the cap payments to later. And the reason that makes sense is because the salary cap should be rising in future years. So I'm going to take a look at that AJ Brown contract. Let's see where it is. Just give me a second. That's a good question. I appreciate the question being brought up, but now I want to take a look at this contract to see if it's actually up, because this is going to lead to some good discussion on this beautiful Monday night. Just hit 9 p.m. All right, Philadelphia Eagles. Over the Cap is a great website for looking at this salary stuff. And if this is out right now, I would be very... No, it's not on Over the Cap. So did somebody post this on Twitter or something? The thing is, when I go live, sometimes I can't see it. So guys, let me know if AJ Brown's contract information is up on Twitter, and I can analyze it live here on the show for you, because I've been waiting for this. We need to see the details of AJ Brown's contract, because that's going to directly give us parameters and possibly even a blueprint for Deebo Samuel's contract. I'm waiting for the money that's guaranteed at signing for AJ Brown, because that will, in my opinion, make or break the easiness of a negotiation for Deebo Samuel moving forward. If it's an exorbitant amount guaranteed at signing, well, this Deebo Samuel negotiation can stretch out for a little bit longer, because the 49ers are going to want to yank that down. But if it's manageable, the fact that AJ Brown has the same agent, Tory Dandy, as Deebo, that means that we might have a sweet spot for a blueprint. And that would be good, I think, for both sides to get this done. Someone said, check Pro Football Talk. It's on Twitter. Well, I'll check it in a bit. Here, if you guys give me a second, I'm going to check this out, because this would be kind of cool to go over on air. You guys can handle it. I know that back during free agency, you all watched me work for an hour. That was kind of funny, and nobody complained. So it was all good. All right, so we'll type in AJ Brown contract and find this. Who tweeted it? Pro Football Talk? Because I honestly don't see it when I'm searching right now. You guys say that it's on Twitter, but I don't see where it is on Twitter. I got so excited that we're going to have AJ Brown contract numbers right in the middle of the show. I don't know if it's going to happen. I'm going to Pro Football Talk's actual Twitter, Mike Florio. See exactly where it is. Guys, I don't see it here. Was this a false lead that we got on the show? It's tough. I don't see it. Anyway, back to talking 49ers. said you just tagged me on Twitter. Let me see. All right. Hold on. TweetDeck is blowing up. Okay. A $23.2 million signing bonus for A.J. Brown. That's not that big. And I don't know what the source is there. Somebody tweeted it, but I don't know where they got that signing bonus from. 23 divided by, what is it for A.J. Brown? 4 years? So you amortize that over 4 years. That's a salary cap hit of only $5.8 million per year. It's on Spot Track. Okay, hold on. I think we have it. Actually see this contract now and not be talking out of my ass about it. $23 million salary signing bonus doesn't sound extreme to me at all. All right, here it is. Cool. Okay, so I'm gonna share this with you guys up on the screen so you could follow along with me. Share screen. Share screen. Just improvising here. There it is. Okay, so here's A.J. Brown's contract on Spot Track. We'll take a look at this. Hopefully this is verified stuff because Over the Cap usually has it first. I don't normally see it on Spot Track. So 2022, A.J. Brown's cap hit. Look at that. A.J. Brown's cap hit stays essentially the same, just a little bit more. $5.6 million in 2022. Deebo Samuel's salary cap hit right now is $3.98 million, so about $4 million. So as you can see, I forgot what AJ's was. I think it might have been the same. Here, yeah, I think AJ's was like 3.986 as well, and Deebo's is probably around 4. Actually, I misquoted that. So Deebo's is about 4. AJ's was about 4 as well. AJ Brown's cap hit only increased to $5.6 million with a new deal. So he gets a new $100 million deal, 4 years, $100 million, and his salary cap hit increases by only $1.6 million. The 49ers can absolutely afford that because it's 2022 when they're squeezed on salary cap space. They have room in 2023 and beyond. So you have a cap hit of $5.6 million. Next year, a cap hit of $9 million. And then the cap hits increase to 28, 23, and $38 million in 2026. Looks like there's some funny money. Up $30 million base salary in 2026. Not even guaranteed. Guaranteed at signing, boom, $40 million. That's huge. The 49ers can sign Deebo Samuel. We've been waiting for this detail right here. A.J. Brown got $40 million guaranteed at signing. That is not a lot in the grand scheme of things, and he has the same agent as Deebo Samuel. So ignore the stuff online that's pretending like, oh my God, the 49ers can't get this done. A.J. Brown, with the same agent as Deebo Samuel, only got $40 million guaranteed at signing. People were afraid that Deebo Samuel would want $60 million guaranteed at signing, that he wants some crazy number. He's not going to get that if his own co-client, A.J. Brown, only got $40 million. That's actually huge news for the 49ers. I should probably make a separate YouTube live about that. I'm going to look a little bit more into that contract, but I thank you so much. I think it was Ashley. Yeah, Ashley, for bringing this to my attention because I'm glad that I saw the actual A.J. Brown contract. That's big news for the 49ers. You heard it here on the show first. $40 million guaranteed at signing. That's manageable. And that is a parameter that I'm sure the 49ers really like. With that said, I am going to go work on this contract. So follow me on Twitter. I want to write a little bit about this, maybe even tonight. It'll come out on The Athletic soon enough. Big news for the 49ers. I outlined their plans to contend in 2022, the efficiency that they'll have to hit, and obviously Deebo Samuel is a big part of it. So like the channel, subscribe to the channel. It's time to go break down that A.J. Brown contract, baby. We'll talk to you all soon.